Hey everybody, up here in Canada we're not having the greatest run of luck right now. The village of Lytton became infamous because it smashed heat records 3 days in a row, and it would have smashed the record on the fourth day, except on the fourth day a sudden fire started and the town was burned out in approximately 10 minutes to 60 minutes depending on where you were in the town.
About 6:30, 7 o'clock, our EOC rallied at our recreational center, and as the evacuees were arriving from Lytton, we're about 63 kilometers north. We've registered as of early this morning over 185. There are a lot of families, relatives, and friends from the Lytton area up here in our area. Our hearts go out to them. It's devastating. We have our rec center gymnasium, which is our registration, and it's full of food, clothing, all kinds of personal items that are required because many of the people had to rush, and some even without their shoes, believe it or not.
However well prepped you are, and hopefully you've managed to cache a whole bunch of stuff that's not going to get burned, but in SHF you might lose everything in a forest fire.
I'm really proud and pleased of our businesses, all of which have opened, our pharmacies and the like, and also individual residents coming and rushing down with all kinds of food and the like. We've got our gymnasium set up, but we also have the arena set up with about 80 cots.
In the here and now, if you have the capacity, will you accept refugees? Will you feed them? Will you be able to house them? Will you be able to give them blankets? Will you be able to give them beds? I think it behooves us all to have that sort of capacity, however limited, in place in case people show up at our door and they've been evacuated and they have nowhere to go. Know what to do, have the Red Cross numbers and official government numbers already in place in case you have no internet, so you can actually inform people, I have X number of people and these are the names and this is where they came from. Now in SHTF it becomes a much more difficult problem. How are you going to handle refugees in SHTF? That will depend on local circumstances and also a lot to do with persons' morals.
Many, because of the heat, are sleeping outside and enjoying it. Last night, in checking with a number of them, enjoying the sleep, mind you, but not so much, obviously, why they're here. And our campground is open, and we have many of the firefighters from the McKay Creek also staying at our campground. So they're also at some of our First Nation band locations. And we're just working hard to get all the registrations up to date so that we can account for everybody. It's emotional, it's devastating, and it is. And we're here for them. I'm proud of our staff and our council and all our residents and everyone that has helped out. It's made it so much easier, as difficult as the situation is. And we're here to support all the people of Lytton, the town, and the local First Nations surrounding it.
In a society collapse, where are you going to go? Who's going to give you food? Who's going to give you water? Who's going to give you shelter? Really key questions. One of the things that I would encourage people to do is network locally, so at least there's a bunch of you who can support each other or be in the same boat together as a community, rather than trying to stagger through an event like this as an individual. So far there's been no actual release, and this is Sunday, July 4th. I think it's July 4th and I think it's Sunday. There's been no accounting of missing people. There's no numbers of how many are missing. What we know is there's 2 dead, and they spent a couple of days messing around with that, though the guy actually saw his dead parents and told them where they were, and he couldn't believe they wouldn't go in straight away and get them. One of the things is they know over 1,000 people evacuated. Well, Lytton has about a population of 200 to 250. The surrounding communities, which were largely affected by the fire but are First Nations, have about 2,000 people. What we do know is a whole bunch of people, tourists, went to camp there in the area because it's the hottest place in Canada by a massive mile. It almost hit 50 centigrade. We don't know how many people are missing. We know from Facebook reports there's a ton. Is it in the dozens or is it in the hundreds? So far, this is Sunday after the event, the government has released no indication of how many people are missing. There's nothing wrong with releasing missing numbers. It gives people motivation to get in contact with the authorities, say, hey, I'm not dead, I'm here. Okay? To say, well, we can't do it, it's too hard. There's very few evacuation centres that these people went to. There's like 4 in the area. It's rural. There's no reason at all why the information about who's in those communities and who they think is missing could not be collated and numbers could be released. I do suspect this is not being released for a very specific reason. I very much fear that the death toll could be in the dozens to the hundreds, and I don't think the government, who did a campfire ban the day of the fire after 3 days of incredible heat, actually wants people to know how many people are probably dead. This type of event is going to be absolutely devastating no matter how prepped you are. It really is. That's something, I thought I could handle it. It's not my house burning down. I thought I could do this, that and the other. I thought I'd be okay. I'm not altogether convinced anymore. Fire on this type of scale, on this type of intensity, is not going to be possible to stop.
Jake said it's coming this way, fast! Let's get out of here.
Sitting at home, you see some smoke, you smell some smoke, you open the door on the high street and there's literal panic. And then what do? A couple of minutes later, it's like 5-10 minutes later, you're seeing buildings that you have seen and walked past and know people who live there totally engulfed within minutes.
It's coming down. Grab that, that's on live. Jesus. Hurry up, get out of the way, Jody.
Ash is flying around already.
Jesus. Which way are we gonna go? I don't want to get stuck here. Oh.
Whole hillside there is on fire. Looks like it's in the jungle now. Look, can't even see down the road. Look at that, man.
Panic is going to happen. If you have a plan in place, if the people around you know that plan, if you're prepped to move, the car has to be full of gas, you probably should have got your valuables in there if you couldn't get out in advance. You should have maybe made sure that your pets could be easily grabbed. A whole bunch of things that you could do, but life's normal and nothing's going on and nobody's worried about it.
Well, you know, our producers have been talking to people who fled from Lytton, and they tell us that it just had one fire truck, but you know, it never had a chance. This encroached on them so quickly. It happened earlier this evening, 15 minutes after smelling smoke. The entire village was engulfed, according to the mayor. Here is Jan Polderman.
The whole town is on fire. I've ordered the town evacuated, and I've told everyone as I was leaving town to leave. It took like a whole 15 minutes from the first sign of smoke to all of a sudden there being fire, everywhere.
From smoke to buildings ablaze in 15 minutes or less. Wow. Speed. I always figured I'd have a few hours, few days notice of a wildfire coming into my area to deal with it. They never assumed that a wildfire would start in my area and I'd have zero notice and zero time.
We're hearing of just a chaotic run to cars, people just sort of not even having time to really get their heads around what they needed. They just needed to get out. They knew that there was this urgency, this wall of fire and smoke. So some people, they've dispersed widely. So some people have gone to Lilooet, some people have gone to Merritt. We're hearing of welcome centers being set up in some of those towns for fire evacuees. And this is just one of more than 41 fires which have been burning in the province, and we know that at least 26 of them, they started in the last 2 days, all coming out of this heat dome. And it's not the only thing that the province is contending with. And if you look at the map of flood watches, it's a patchwork of flood warnings and sort of flood watches because of the extreme heat temperatures also created an alpine melt. So rivers are bloated with runoff from mountains. And, this heat also created such intense conditions conditions. Much of the interior is a tinderbox. Heartbroken for the community of Lytton, hoping for the best but extremely worried based on eyewitness reports and the speed with which the fire spread into town. She's also very worried about another fire that is near Kamloops, the Sparks Lake fire, and its rapid spread causing evacuation alerts. Indeed, we have been reporting on that throughout the day. Earlier today, a campfire ban came in, so you know, that helps for people, but not necessarily for nature. It has other ideas. You know, this is lightning strikes in these types of conditions, plus the wind. It's just a recipe for disaster right now, Ian.
It's only a matter of time before a large town or a city somewhere in North America or Russia, because they're having the same heat dome that North America's having, except we're not covering it, dies, burns, gets destroyed, most of it. It's only a matter of time. It has happened in the early part of the 20th century, and it's going to happen again. And we really need to beef up our response and ability to tell people to evacuate and where to evacuate from wildfires and other issues. We really need to put serious money into civil defence. People need to know which routes to take. People need to arrive at emergency centres that are pre-stocked. A whole bunch of things. Audible sirens because cell phones may not work. And as I said before, banning the campfires the day of the fire was a little late in my opinion, and I'd like to know who's responsible for allowing open flame in that area for the 3 to 4 days beforehand when it was absolutely hot. There is no suggestion at this point it was a campfire. People are thinking it's train sparks, it could have been lightning, nobody knows.
This has been a Dog in a Bonnet Productions.
2021. Hey everybody, this video is about, I can't do this. Hey everybody, happy 4th of July to those Americans out there. This is probably one of the hardest videos I'm ever going to do because I'm really upset. Hey everybody, happy 4th of July, Huples Cat. This video is a collection of news clips, and I've done it in a certain way to actually hear the voices of the people affected by the sudden wildfire that wiped out the village of Lytton in BC. There's a bunch of prepping lessons in here for me, and I've studied wildfires a lot, but I learned a lot of stuff by listening to the voices and figuring out what happened and all the rest of it. But I do want to say that my sympathies are with the people of Lytton, and this is opening take about number 10, because I keep crying. Jeff made it, and his parents did not. He had to see his parents burned to death, and weirdly,